Okay. My name is Louise Cosgren. I'm on the Gender and SRHR teams in DFID. Thank you very much for those really interesting discussions that we've had so far from both of the speakers. My question is, so the Girls' Summits last year created huge international momentum on two issues, on FGM and child early and forced marriage, very pervasive and previously neglected issues. Clearly, fragility poses huge threats to delivering on ending these practices. So I'd be interested to hear from the speakers about what is the most meaningful contribution that the UK government and other governments in the global north, and indeed organisations in the global north, can make to ending these practices without creating further polarisation on the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. And if I could turn to Irina Andrassy, Deputy Head of Cabinet at DevCo, European Commission. If we could bring the microphone here. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. As you said, yes, I work for the Commissioner Mimica, who took office in November last year, and probably you know one of his priorities in the next 5 years is gender, women empowerment. So what we are now doing is trying to adopt a new action plan on the EU level. We will definitely focus on education, health, and access to financial resources for women and girls, as well, and giving them a voice. The one thing that is most difficult, unfortunately, to pin down and to frame is exactly what you were talking about, and is this change of this institutional resistance, change of norms, social frameworks, interpretations, religious issues. Scholars sometimes say that the only thing that will work is conditionality. When you, as international community, provide assistance, you should condition your assistance on the progress in women's rights and gender equality in the respective countries. Some say, no, this will not work. You have to provide incentives of a different nature. So in your experience, I would like to know what your thinking behind this is. What would your assessment be? What would be this right balance of incentives, carrots, sticks, or you know, whatever, that the international community can provide in order to move forward, to have those 3 steps, not 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but 3 steps forward.
Right, brilliant. And can I see other hands? Gentleman at the back, and then woman in the front here.
Hi there. Okay. Hi there. My name's Charlie Enso. I'm working for UCL on a maternal health care project at the moment in Somaliland. Coming from this is particularly for Lakshmi. I've had a bit of experience working in post-conflict environments. So last year I was in Ethiopia working on an education initiative, and recently in Somaliland on a maternal healthcare project we're hoping to get running. One thing I've noticed, and it's very true to what you've been saying, is this process of integrating women back into the peace-building process. Ethiopia has responded to that crisis.
Charlie, can I ask you to keep your question really tight, because we are really up against it in terms of time. Thank you.
It's been able to integrate women into the peace-building process via women's integration in the TPLF, the rebel force that overthrew the Derg. In terms of that crisis point we're at the moment, how does UN Women see itself positioning itself on the bottom-up peace-building process, integrating women? Because a lot can be said from the top-down approach. But what always seems to be lacking is that connection between the two. I was just wondering how you see yourselves responding to that and with the crises that are emerging at the moment.
Thank you. And we'll take the last question from the front here.
Caroline Harper from the Overseas Development Institute. A question prompted from Dr. Ebadi's comment about throwing the book at the problem. And I just wondered around the issue of specifically education of boys and girls. I mean, even in the UK, where we have, many advanced rights, we still see women speaking out on issues and subject to horrible abuse, often through social media, and that reflects a sort of underlying misogyny in society. I would really like to hear how you have seen more progressive attitudes embedded amongst boys and girls at a young age, and how we can support young people to grow up with far more progressive attitudes about social equality between the genders.
So, Dr. Ebadi, if I could turn to you for, I think 3 of those questions were headed in your direction, and then perhaps I could turn to you, Ms. Puri, with the question on maternal health and peace building. Sorry, the peace building in the UN. Yeah.
No, I'll also, if I may respond to that.
Okay, Dr. Ebadi.
قبل از اینکه به این سوالا جواب بدم میخوام یه خاطره ای رو براتون بگم.
Before I answer these questions, I would like to relate a memory of mine.
من یه روز رفته بودم به شورای حقوق بشر سازمان ملل که راجع به تبعیض قانونی که در ایران هست علیه زنان صحبت بکنم.
I remember going to the UN Human Rights Council recently, and I was speaking about the official discriminations against women in Iran.
و سفرای کشورهایی که عضو شورا بودن اونجا نشسته بودن که حرفای من رو گوش کنن.
And the ambassadors of the Human Rights Council member states were all sitting there to listen to me.
و من تا وارد اتاق شدم چشم به نماینده عربستان سعودی افتاد.
So the moment I entered the room, the first ambassador that caught my eye was the Saudi Arabian ambassador.
گفتم دیگه حرفی نداره.
So I said, I have nothing to say anymore.
من از هیئتی که عربستان سعودی عضوشه بخوام که به زنان کمک کنه؟
What can I possibly ask from a delegation led by a Saudi Arabian ambassador, considering the way they treat their women?
این خاطره رو واسه میگم که باید چون نماینده UN هست میخوام چیزی اضافه کنم.
I have related this because we have someone from UN Women here, and I would like to highlight something.
میدونید که ایران یکی از تبعیض‌آمیزترین قوانین علیه زنان داره.
I don't know if you're aware, but Iran has one of the most discriminatory laws against women.
به عنوان مثال بعد از انقلاب آمدن گفتن ارزش جان زن نیست ارزش جان مرد.
For instance, after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, they said that a woman's life is worth half of that of a man.
یعنی اگه من و برادرم بریم خیابون کسی به ما حمله بکنه خسارتی که به من میدن نصف چیزی خسارت برادرم 2 برابر است که به من میدن.
In other words, if my brother and I are involved in some accident, any accident, the damage awarded to my brother by a court of law would be twice that awarded to me.
شهادت 2 زن معادل با شهادت 1 مرد در دادگاه.
The testimony of 2 women is tantamount to testimony of 1 man in a court.
1 مرد میتونه 4 تا زن بگیره.
A man is allowed to have 4 wives.
و خیلی قوانین بد دیگه.
And so many other terrible laws.
ما هنوز زنان رو سنگسار میکنه.
In Iran, they still stone women to death.
و متاسفم که زنان که دولت ایران جزء هیئت مدیره UN Women شده.
And I'm very sorry to see that the Iranian delegation has now joined the UN Women.
و این خیلی بده.
That is very tragic.
و طبیعتاً یه چنین دولتی اجازه نمیده که برنامه‌هایی به نفع زنان در جهان پیش بره.
And naturally, a government like Iran is not going to allow any programs or incentives for women to take place.
و اما در مورد سوالات.
Now, regarding your questions.
مسئله مهم این است که تبعیض این تبعیض علیه زنان ریشش در کجاست؟
The main issue is, where is the root of this discrimination against women?
آیا مذهبه؟
Is it religion?
اقتصاده؟
Is it economy?
ریشه تمام تبعیضات فرهنگ پدرسالاره.
The root of all discriminations, it emanates from a patriarchal culture.
منظور من از فرهنگ پدرسالار فقط جنس مذکر نیست، بلکه فرهنگ غلطی است که برابری انسان‌ها رو قبول نداره.
And by patriarchal culture, I'm not just referring to the masculine culture. I am talking about people who don't accept the gender equality.
این فرهنگ برای توجیه خودش از هر چیزی استفاده میکنه، از جمله مذهب.
And to justify itself, this culture uses anything, including religion.
و فقط اسلام نیست.
And this is not exclusive to Islam.
به عنوان مثال در تمام ادیان ابراهیمی یک گناهکار بزرگ هست و اون زنه، حوا.
For example, in all the Abrahamite religions, the main sinner is woman, it's Eve.
چرا؟
And why?
حوا چیکار کرده؟
What did Eve do?
بهشت کجا بوده؟
Where was paradise?
چرا همه بعد از بهشت بیان بیرون به خاطر اینکه یه زن گناه کرده؟
Why should everyone be expelled from paradise just because a woman had sinned?
اینو شما تو تمام کتابای مذهبی چه تورات و چه انجیل و چه قرآن میخونید.
You have seen that in all the religious books, be it the Torah, the Bible, and so on and so forth.
این تفسیر مردانه از مذهبه.
This is the male interpretation of the religion.
واسه همینه که تا حالا یه دونه پاپ زن نداشتید.
Which is exactly why there's never been a female pope in the world.
و برای همینه که در اسلام میگن زن حق نداره جلوی مرد واسه نماز بخونه ولی نماز اون مرد باطل میشه.
And that is why in Islam they say that during the daily prayers a woman should not stand in front of the man, otherwise the prayers of that man would not be accepted by God.
و خیلی چیزای دیگه.
And many others.
در حقیقت این فرهنگ پدرسالاره که از مذهب سوء استفاده میکنه.
So in effect is the patriarchal culture that is exploiting religion.
چطور میشه با این فرهنگ که ریشه همه تبعیض هاست مبارزه کرد؟
So how can we fight this culture which is the root of all discriminations?
با دانش، با آگاهی دادن.
With knowledge, by raising awareness.
ما بایستی عملکردهای مختلف این فرهنگ غلط رو نشون بدیم.
We have to highlight the various ways in which this wrong culture manifests itself.
و به همین دلیلی که من به تحصیلات مخصوصا برای دخترها خیلی اهمیت میدم.
Which is why I put great emphasis on the need for education, especially for women.
اما تحصیلات با کیفیت.
But by education, I mean an education which is of high quality.
توی خیلی از توی تمام کتاب‌های که در خاورمیانه هست همیشه زن‌ها توی آشپزخونه ترسیم میشن و نقشی که به زن‌ها میدن تو فیلم‌ها تو کتاب‌های درسی نقشه یه مادره.
Now, in the Middle East, in books, in films, in soap operas, the women are always seen either in the kitchen or as mothers.
در حقیقت از کوچکی به بچه‌ها یاد میدن که فایده زن بودن این است که فقط بچه بزاد.
In other words, from early childhood, they teach girls that you're only there to procreate.
این آموزش به درد نمیخوره.
That education is of no use.
من وقتی که صحبت از آموزش میکنم کیفیت آموزشم مورد نظره.
So when I speak of education, I'm talking about quality.
اما اینکه اتحادیه اروپا یا انگلیس چه کمک‌هایی میتونن برای پیشرفت زن بکنن؟
Now, as to what European Union, national community, including the UK, could do to help progress of women.
به نظر من پارالل چندین کار رو باید انجام بدید.
In my view, there are several things that you could do in parallel.
ارتقاء روابط و کمک‌های اقتصادی رو موکول بکنید به بهبود وضعیت حقوق بشر.
You have to make any economic relationships conditional on improving human rights.
و در این حال برای بورس‌های تحصیلی اولویت بدید به زن‌هایی که از کشورهای سخت و بسته میاد.
And in parallel to that, you could, when it comes to scholarships, you should give priority to girls and women who come from these closed and developing countries.
کتاب‌های روشنفکران اسلامی رو ترجمه کنید، چاپ کنید، در اختیار همه بگذارید.
You should translate books written by progressive Muslims and make sure they're well distributed.
این خیلی دردناکه که از یک کشوری مثل انگلیس تعداد از جوانها میرن به آیسیس میپیوندن.
It's indeed very tragic to see how some young people from a progressive country such as the United Kingdom go and join the Islamic State.
چرا این اتفاق میفته؟
Why is this happening?
چرا اجازه میدین که جوانهای شما فریب یک گروه تروریستی رو بخورن؟
Why are you allowing your young people to be deceived by a terrorist group?
شما سالها اینها چشمتون رو بسته بودید.
You had kept your eyes closed for many years.
خیلی معذرت میخوام ولی که جوانها رو ندیدید.
I apologize for saying that, but it's like you never noticed these young people.
و حالا متوجه شدید که یه عده تروریست تو کشور خودتونه.
Now you've ended up with some terrorists in your own country.
بنابراین وقت اونه که همه ما چشمامون رو باز کنیم.
In other words, the time has come for all of us to open our eyes.
این امنیت برای همه ماها مهمه.
Security is important for all of us.
و قبل از اینکه یه جایی آتش بگیره صبر نکنیم یه جایی آتش بگیره بعد بریم آتش رو خاموش کنیم. اصلا اجازه ندیم آتش بگیره.
We shouldn't wait for a place to go on fire and then try and go and prevent it. We have to prevent it before it happens.
یه دلیل دیگه ای که جوانها جذب گروه تروریستی میشن ناامیدی از عدالت اجتماعیه.
Another reason that young people are attracted to these terrorist groups is because they have lost hope in social justice.
ما خیلی کارها میشه کرد و باید انجام بدیم که امنیت واقعی رو برقرار کنیم.
There are many things that we could and should do if we want real security to be established.
و اگر همه دست به دست هم بدیم موفق میشیم.
And we can succeed provided we all join hands.
ما موفق خواهیم شد که بنیادگرایی اسلامی رو از بین ببریم.
We will succeed in eradicating Islamic fundamentalism.
فقط به جای اینکه فقط یادمون باشه که راه حلش بمباردمان نیست.
As long as we bear in mind that the solution is not in bombing them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I've just been talking here with Ms. Puri that we'll bring those other questions back into the second session because I have completely overrun and there are messages here about the coffee getting cold outside. So, and I would hate to keep you all from your coffee. So I would like to thank Ms. Puri and Dr. Ebadi. I will remember those questions, don't worry, looking over there in particular. And we're also getting some questions online from the people who are following us, so that is really exciting. We'll have a coffee break and then we'll hear from our speakers who are going to talk about situation in Nigeria and research from Ethiopia, and then we have more space for Q&A. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, Dr. Ebadi and Ms. Puri.